So I made a video talking about my favorite jingles, which are in Kamen Rider, some of my favorite toys, which are in Super Sentai, but what about Ultraman? Well, personally, out of all the Toko I've seen, and I've seen a lot, nothing will ever beat the Ultraman Rise. I personally like to call them the Ultraman Rises because we have the Kamen Rider Henshins, the Super Sentai changes, I guess, or Power Rangers, morphs, but Ultraman has the Rise. And I think that just sounds cool on its own. The Ultraman Rise? Oh my gosh, that just sounds cool to me. One of the most iconic moments to me in the entire history of Tokusatsu is Shin Hayata coming out of his spaceship and then using his toy to transform into Ultraman for the first time. The Rise itself looks really cool on its own. Just having that like really weird abstract, it's not entirely flat red background flashing with Ultraman going up, and he looks like a PNG, but I just think that looks cool. And the sound effects that goes with it, oh man. Classic, iconic, and it is honestly, Ultraman just has some of the best transformation sequences ever. The toys are a different thing. I'm not really gonna bring them up that much here, but I do like the toys enough. I think this is pretty cool on its own. This is the Ultra 7 transformation device. It's just glasses, and this looks a little silly. And speaking of silly, the Ultra 7 transformation isn't a rise because Ultra 7 wasn't originally meant to be an Ultraman in the first place. So just having his transformation sequence have been more like a traditional suit up with his head, all that stuff, I think that's fine. I do like the part where like his shoulders come by piece. I think that's pretty cool. It is still pretty not there. Ultraman Jack didn't have a transformation toy, so I think it's pretty silly that to transform, you just lift your arms up and then you become Ultraman Jack.
Leo. I am definitely not biased. Also, Burn Mate's pretty cool as well.
Ultraman Aces is pretty iconic too because it takes two people to transform, at least initially in the first half of Ace. And I do like that idea. I like that they have to like combine their rings to transform. And I think the Ace Rise is one of my favorites of all time. Just the spin is enough to be like, oh wow, that's really cool. I really like Ultraman Ace's Rise because of that. Every little change there is to a Rise outside of a background, I think makes for something more interesting, something more dynamic. And while Ace spun around to transform, I think Taro having his hand out instead of in a fist motion, I think that's pretty cool too. I don't have too much to say about Leo. The background's kind of trippy and that's cool, but otherwise Leo's just, it's a Rise. And then we have 80. Don't have much to say about that. The cartoon and anime Ultraman are pretty interesting because since if they're in a different medium, they can do more, they can do something different than what they can do or what's capable in live action. And I'm going to say the same thing about the anime Ultraman because they're not proper Ultraman, so they don't get proper rises. Instead, they just get suit up sequences. And even if we don't get to see these sequences that much, I want to say that like once or twice each season, they're still really cool. My favorite's gonna have to go to the Ultraman Taro anime sequence. I just love the flame body and then having just like armor on top of that. I just think that's so cool. These next two ones are English-made Ultraman. The first one is Ultraman Great from Ultraman Towards the Future. It's a little abstract, and I kind of like that. It's a little like artsy, where you don't really get to see a proper rise either, but it is a little different. So you get to see, I don't know, someone just concentrating so hard to become an Ultraman. I think that's pretty cool. I think it also fits the character. And then Ultraman Powered from Ultraman the Ultimate Hero, I think is super lame. I don't really like it. Powered is just a PNG on a background with like After Effects lightning. So not my favorite, and I hate how cheap it looks. They couldn't even make the PNG bigger in like 3 intervals. It just flowed slowly. Oh gosh, if I go more, I'm just gonna talk more about Ultraman Powered and how much I don't like it. Moving on. Oh hey, it's the Heisei Ultraman that I don't have much to say about. Tiga's is iconic in its own way, but the Rise, it's pretty cool. I like it. I don't mind it. I'm gonna skip Dyna because I don't have much to say about that. But next we have Ultraman Gaia. I also don't have too much to say about this other than it looks neat, and that's as much as I can say about Gaia. Is my bias showing here when I skip like 3 other Ultraman? Or 4 if I'm gonna count like Agul and stuff. But Ultraman Max is also trying to be a little bit different in that the Rise is actually CG this time. Well, we had CG before, but this is like fully proper CG going into like a proper Rise. And I think that's kind of neat too. But since I brought up CG Ultraman, I also have to bring up Ultraman Zed. I actually like Zerth a lot, just in general. So like, just that sequence alone is really fun. I like that. And then again, having another CG Ultraman doing his Rise, I think that's pretty cool too. Although that CG doesn't look good, even for being a movie. It doesn't really look good. You'll notice in a lot of these Ultraman, when they do their rises, they're either like, the camera's either like on top like this, and when they'll do their fist, they look up, or the camera's at an angle. And I think the ones that are at an angle are some of my favorite dynamic positions. And we can't forget about Gridman. I don't have too much to say about it. The Mega Monster Battle series don't have Ultraman. It's just focused on the kaiju. But even the kaiju transformations or the kaiju summons are pretty cool too. And out of Mega Monster Battle, we also got the introduction to Ultraman Zero. I actually never really liked Zero's first transformation. He looks like he's T-posing, so I just think that that's silly, like in a bad way. I don't really like it that much. But he does get a proper rise in another season, so I think that's like 1,000 times better. Ultraman Ginga! Ginga was one of my first introductions to the Ultraman series. Ginga has a pretty cool transformation sequence too. I like that instead of having his fist up, that he actually spins around and a galaxy is right behind him. I think that's really cool. I like the first Ginga rise. There's also Ultraman Victory. I think his is the most beautiful rise, like, just ever. It is so pretty. It is so shiny. Ultraman X is fine, I guess. I do like that X crosses his arms to, like, you know, be X and then has his fist up. That's a cool detail. Ultraman Tiger! Ultraman Tiger! 光の力お借りします Ultraman Powered Specium Zeterion! Past Ultraman, when they would transform, it would be super quick, but then Ultraman Orb introduced us to some longer sequences that takes the gimmick to transform, while Ginga and X and Victory, they just use a spark doll to put it on their toy and then transform. Ultraman Orb has like... Ultraman Orb needs to have like instructions to transform, because you have these cards and you put them into the orb cap. But it is still really cool to me. I love... Orb is really up there.
Ultraman G!
It's fine, I think.
Ginga! Ultraman Ginga! Ultraman Powered! Origin! New Generation Captain! Alpha!
Ultraman G also has one of the longest transformation sequences in the entire history of Tokusatsu.
Victory! X! Ultraman Victory! Ultraman X! New Generation Captain Beta!
I'm not gonna play all of it because copyright. But just trust me on this, it takes forever. And I love it.
Ultraman Powered! Ultraman Ginga!
This is one of the weirdest transformation toys ever. And a lot of people don't like it, but to me, I personally kind of do. It is weird, but I do like being able to like pull this apart and spin it. This version with the pizza cutter is actually Ultraman Orb Dark's transformation. And his is cool too because it also has a very similar rise to the original Ultraman Orb, but it's Aizen, so he does like this heart thing, and I think that is adorable. And oh man, I love Roop to death. I asked on Twitter what your favorite Ultraman Rises were, and I got a lot of Ultraman Tiger or Raiga, the three versions of the Ultraman together. But personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Tiger or Raiga. I like the transformation gimmick with like the gauntlet. I think that's neat. It is another CG one, and it has more movement. It's not just like 3 intervals like all the other Ultraman. This one actually like moves and goes up like this. I think that's cool too, and it is CG, and that is fine. It looks better than the past ones, but I don't know. Not much to say about that. One of my favorite rises just ever in the history of Tokusatsu. I'm saying that a lot this video because these rises are really cool. But one of my favorite rises ever is Ultraman Groob from the Roo movie. In general, I liked how in Roo, when they transform, they have the Ultraman stand behind them like giant, and then when they transform into Ultraman Roo proper, they have like the whole lineup of the Ultraman stand up behind them. Man, top 10 favorite Toku moments. And another one of my favorite rises is from Ultraman Zed.
Ultraman Zed! Ultraman Zed! Alpha Edge!
The announcement is already pretty cool, and having to have Zed say like chant my name, and then you chant Ultraman Zed. I think that's already cool as a build-up for the sequence. But then when you see the other Ultraman that are like in the sequence like fly across, and then they have their grunts to go with it, like their iconic like sounds. It's so good. But then you see Zed's backgrounds, and they are so pretty. It is gorgeous, and you see them also similar to like the previous Ultraman that they were used for the transformation sequence. And man, can you tell I love Ultraman Rises yet? They're just so pretty.
Ultraman G, Galaxy Rising.
I like when Riku transforms and he says like live unite up. That's actually the call out for those Ultraman. I think that's a neat detail. Again, Ultraman just has some neat details for their rises, and that's about it. Otherwise, it's fine. The background's pretty. And then we have Trigger.
Ultraman Trigger Multi-Type.
Trigger is also one of my favorites of all time. The announcement is so good. The transformation toy is so good, and it's like a lance, just like Tiga, but it's also a gun. And then you have the USB to transform, and the rise is pretty too. And oh man, why did it have to be in Trigger?
Ultraman Decker Flash Type.
This is kind of a lame one to end off on. Deckers is it's fine. I think the best thing about Deckers is the announcement, Ultraman Decker Flash Type. That's fun, but otherwise Deckers is just, it's fine. Remember when Kamen Rider Ichigo had a rise? I love Tokusatsu. And now here are my favorite Ultraman rises.
Top 10 Ultraman Rises.
Ultraman Zed Original. Ultraman Beria.
Ultraman Blazar is already looking to be just fantastic from everything I've seen.
The trailers, the sounds, the music, just everything, and him not having like an announcement proper like in the show. And Blazar is just looking to be everything I want. So
If the rise is good, then I'm not gonna stop being annoying about it.